All right, so we had a great Memorial Day weekend media, extravaganza, and it's now Memorial Day, and we've got a special guest down in Florida. Tim, you there?
I'm here. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning to you. So it's almost, lunchtime down in Florida. I appreciate you taking time out of your day this beautiful Sunday. Your story's going to be released tomorrow. I guess your sidekick is there as well. Levita, are you with him?
I'm here.
All right, so we've done the Altmaier Rankin Wilder women where we had 3 people on at once. We're going to try to do this again. Tim, I'm going to let you direct the conversation, and if your wife wants to jump in and say a couple things. I heard you guys are a great team down in Florida. You work well together. So Levita, if you want to jump in, no problem.
That's no problem. I'll be glad to.
Excellent. So let me just ask you, Tim, have you heard about the Horseman's Voice recently, or did you hear about us back in the day?
Actually, it's been within the last few months. I heard about it on Facebook. Watched many of your interviews. Was very impressed. By the way, many years ago I had many strokes. And I have a little difficult time speaking, so bear with me if I slur a few words. I work at it, and but I'm here, and I will give it my best.
Excellent.
Levita oftentimes will take telephone calls and things from me because she knows I struggle a little bit with my speech. So
no problem. No problem.
She's here. So yeah, I think you do a great job.
I appreciate it. We just like to, bring the issues to the industry to the forefront. We like to keep everything positive. So, I don't want to digress into any negativity today, but if you want to express your, feelings of the industry, we don't have an issue with that. But let's first start, with your grandfather, who first exposed you to the horses, your grandpa, Jim Finley.
Well, yes, he really did not expose me per se. He's the only one I can find in my heritage that had a horse. And he owned several companies in Ohio, one of them being an ice company, and he delivered ice with his team of horses. So I don't know if it's a genetic thing where I inherited a love for horses, but actually my father was an engineer, and I'm the only one. I'm the black sheep of the family that had any horses other than Grandpa Jim, and no one had race horses. They think I'm a little bit wacko.
So we've got this shot here with your dad, and I guess you're a little chicklin. I mean, what type of animals did you have growing up? I mean, you said horses, but did you have like little, pet hamsters or birds, or what other animals did you have growing up?
Well, I was born an animal lover. I truly believe that. And I started out with a little puppy when I was small, and but I was one of those kids that every time I saw a dog running loose, I'd bring it home. And usually it was sick, and my parents would have to pay the vet bill. And then we'd either keep it or try to find it at home. And, but, I had rabbits, and then when Levita and I got married, we built a home in the country, and we had geese and ducks and goats and sheep and horses, and I just am actually an animal fanatic, and luckily Levita loves animals also.
So would you consider yourself like an animal whisperer or just a horse whisperer? I mean, because certain people have that trait as children, and they, delve into that when they're older. I mean, you still have animals to this day. I know you got a parakeet that you're kind of silencing on that end, but I guess what other pets do you have today besides the horses and the parakeets, down in Florida?
It's a parrot, and we have 3 cats, a dog, the parrot, and we have some horses who are partners on. And to answer your question about being a horse whisperer, that's a pretty good title, but I think that I have a lot of the patience of the horse whisperer. I've taken horses that other people couldn't get to the races or could not get to behave, and I spent a lot of time and patience and thought, and I can usually turn horses around. The horse that I just had that perished in a fire, which I'd like you to discuss a little bit later.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't want to interrupt, but we've got some pretty cool shots here of the All World Horse Show. But let's talk about you, I guess, as a child still. You were an altar boy?
Oh, yeah, I was an altar boy. I was also born a believer. My parents didn't say, hey, you're going to believe in God. I just had this innate belief in God, and have had all my life, and I went out and was an altar boy. And that was before I became a hoodlum.
So what about this shot here? I guess, is this your sister and brother? It says Tom and Melissa Finley.
That's my son and daughter.
Oh, these are your kids. Okay. But let's talk back about Massillon. You were in Massillon, Ohio. You're claiming it's like a little Chicago. You got a shot here with the boys. Is this, I guess, at your wedding or one of the guys' weddings?
Well, it was one of the guys' weddings. I'm the arrogant-looking one in the middle. And it was a little Chicago. It was a very, very rough town. We drank hard. We fought hard. We were womanizers. And we had gang fights, east side against the west side. And it went back even into the 20s. They had legalized gambling there, a lot of murders. And it was a very colorful town in which to be raised. I've always been a man who needed action, and I found action in that town. And I led kind of a fast lifestyle for a while.
Okay. So, like I said, we've got the shot here of the kids, but we've got your beautiful wife here in this next shot. Levito, you're sitting next to him. This is a shot of you guys at the Little Brown Jug. You want to tell us, I guess, how many Little Brown Jugs have you guys been to?
Well, we actually lived in Delaware, Ohio. We built a home there. We had 5 acres, and our children went to school in Delaware. I trained at the Delaware Fairgrounds, and we missed very few jugs over the last 45 years. So we were regulars. We would take the week off and watch all the races, eat at all the junk food, walk around, see our friends, and we're going to try to make it back this summer.
Excellent. So now, on to the All-World Horse Show. You got invited to demonstrate, I guess, how to educate a yearling, and then this next shot we're going to get into is going to blow people away. But I guess, how did that come about? I mean, getting this invite to the All-World Horse Show.
I'm going to try to make a long story short. When I first got into the standard breds, I saw horses that did not behave well. But my neighbor in the country had an American saddlebred ability. Her horses behaved perfectly. So I went to her and I said, what are we doing wrong? She said, you people, hurry, get that horse to the track and racing. She said, I can teach you how to train horses to do what you want them to do. And so I spent a year under her tutelage, and then I became very adequate at it, and I started breaking horses, or I don't like that term, breaking, educating horses, young horses. I even took older horses that had been ruined, turned them around, and I got a reputation for being good at it. I even had standardbred people bring me horses that they couldn't get straightened out. And I'd spend a month turning a horse around and send it back to the trainer. What I love to do. I love that more than anything. Give me a horse and let me educate it.
Now, I'm in Morton Grove, Illinois, and if you didn't know this, when the Clydesdales come through and travel across the country, they stop at basically at the shed row where my parents met in the 1950s. But you've got this shot here with this Clydesdale. I mean, this horse is mammoth compared to you in this shot. Do you want to tell us about how you got access to the Clydesdales? Because it's like, when they come to town, the only person that knows is the mayor, and they try not to tip me off, but I always find out when they come to town. So how did you get, I mean, even just to grab the lines of a Clydesdale?
Well, I was invited to demonstrate the proper way to long line or said, pick a horse. I said, well, I'll take that big Clydesdale over there.
Wow.
So, yeah, so he was a yearling. He'd never been once.
Wow.
And I taught him. They're a very intelligent horse, and they're willing to work for you. So it was not a feat, okay? He just caught on right away, and it was fun because they are so big, you expect them to be a little more aggressive, but they're very kind and gentle for the most part, and willing to learn.
And it's amazing, like this next shot here, and we're going through the pictures, so we're going to have to start moving quick on them because there's a lot of them. We want to start talking about some of your thoughts in the industry, but Rambling Willie, the horse that God loved, I mean, how do you get to jog Willie?
Well, I knew the Farrington family, and we were visiting the Kentucky Horse Park after he retired. And I walked into his barn, and the caretaker immediately recognized me. And he said, I'm just getting ready to take Willie out. Would you like to jog him? I've got goosebumps right now telling you the story. I said, who wouldn't want to jog Rambling Willie? So I took him out and took him through his paces. And I was very surprised because he was just common. I guess I expected royalty or, gold to be running through his veins, but he shied at some things, and, he was a regular horse, but it was one of the highlights of my life. That was really something to remember.
So you did a lot of jogging, you did a lot of training. We got a shot here with Super Gyp. I mean, how often did you drive in the county fairs? And can I ask, do you know what your record is in the county fairs?
Well, no, I just won a couple of races at the county fairs and matinees. It was not my aspiration to be a driver. If I would have been able to go back and start in a family like David Miller with aunts, uncles, father, and could have sat behind horses at 8 years old, I probably would have pursued that as an occupation. But I didn't get into it until I was in my mid-20s, and I just didn't feel like I could compete with professional people. So I did it for fun and for the experience and to learn what, drivers go through out there. I had a fairly good feel for the horse. I think I had an excellent feel for the horse. My problem was if I'd be sitting in the forehole and it was time to pull, I'd be thinking about, should I pull? Well, you can't think about it, okay? There's no time. You just pull instinctively. So that was my problem. I overthought it too much. I was in a race one time with, I think, Stanley Dancer and Billy Houghton at Shire Downs, and I was in between them, and I was driving that horse who never made a break. But I was so nervous because I was between these two big-time drivers that the horse made a break leaving. I didn't have the confidence to feel that I belonged there. But I'm confident when it comes to training. I spend a lot of time, I give it a lot of thought. I don't quit.
So, before we get into your, I guess, job and things that you were doing, growing up to support, I guess, your passion, Levita, if I can ask, we've got a shot here of your guy's son, Tom. I mean, was he influential with the kids? We've got a shot here of Tom winning his first race, basically in his first drive in Hillard, Ohio. So, you were raising the kids. Would they come out and help with the horses? What were you guys doing?
Oh, yeah. Back in the day, it was a family affair. And we would take the kids to the track, and our daughter, when she was like 9 years old, went into a stall with a new yearling, and she actually curried and picked the speed up the first time. Now, the picture of Tom, our son Tom died when he was 45.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry.
Tom got into he ran away from home in Colorado. It's my stepson. And he ran away from home and got into some problems, and then he came to live with us. He saw the jug, he attended the jug, the brown jug, and he was enthralled with the horses and the drivers. So he started working for some other trainers and for Tim, and then he got into driving, and he was actually exceptionally good. But then he wanted to move back to Colorado because it was too cold in Ohio. So that's a picture of our son, and our daughter is standing beside him. That's Lynn. And that was us at the Hilliard County Fair.
So, I mean, obviously Tom passed away, but was he, with the horses most of his life, or he wasn't doing them out in Colorado? And then did Melissa do anything else, or she kind of just did her own thing and then, had the grandkids?
Actually, I'm going to answer that. Tom did it for about 5 years. He didn't move back to Colorado because of the difference in temperature, because they're about the same. He moved back to Colorado because he had a drug problem, and his drug friends were in Colorado.
Got it.
He was a great kid, but the drugs got the best of him, and he died of an accidental drug overdose.
But, did Melissa do anything else? As far as training or helping out? You said she lifted a foot at 9. Was she still around helping out?
That was Lynn. That's Davita's daughter. To the side of Tom. Melissa's not in that photo.
Okay.
She was raised by her mother in Colorado, and she chose a different route. She is a college graduate and became active in Washington, D.C.
Gotcha.
And is now
interesting.
in the state of Washington.
We're going to get into that, because I see the shot of Air Force One. How did that happen? You got Tom and the grandkids, and I guess, was it through your daughter's connection, because your son-in-law was one of the pilots of Air Force One?
Well, he was a crew member, and she worked for the federal government in a very high security position, and they were invited, the entire family, to meet the president and to Air Force One, and that's Tom and our 2 grandsons after meeting with the president. And that was quite an honor for the entire family. But Melissa, she didn't have much of an interest in horses. She's more academically inclined, and a mother and a capitalist.
Gotcha. So speaking about capitalism, we got this shot here of a bull. I didn't know that you were a stockbroker. So do you want to explain quickly, I guess, how you were a bull on Wall Street, as you're saying?
Yeah, I became interested in the stock market when I was 13 years old. I started reading every book that I possibly could, and I had intended to become a stockbroker, and then I got interested in law, and I took pre-law. Then I got married and quit that avenue, but I took the Wall Street trip, and I did that for most of my life, and I still trade online. I made a good living doing that, and I'm a futurist. And to be a good stockbroker, you have to look into the future.
Exactly.
Because the past isn't going to do anything.
Exactly.
You have to be able to look and say, hey, here's a good hamburger chain, let's invest in it. Or they have new medications, let's invest in those companies. Or here's what's going to happen to racetracks. So I'm a futurist, and that's one of the reasons I do what I do in harness racing. I can tell you things that other people can't tell you because they don't see them. But that's my training. I'm not trying to be an egomaniac. I could never do what you do, okay? But what I do is specialize. I see the future in businesses.
You're an idea guy. I mean, it comes down to you're an idea guy. I'm the same way. You see things, you could foreshadow things just off your knowledge and skill set, and it's a common trait. And I'll say this, for people that are super educated and, super, I guess, intuitive, I would say, and us being, I guess, horse whisperers or animal whisperers, we can kind of sense things and see things differently. So let's talk about the move down to Florida. I guess you took 3 horses down in 2001. One of them was a horse, I guess, that raced at Balmoral.
Actually, I found out that's when I had the mini strokes. And my doctor told me, he said, and rid of the stress. Well, stress is my friend. I love stress. But he said, you could die pretty quick if you don't lighten up. So we sold everything, moved down here. I bought 3 horses. They were cheaper type horses, but I trained them well. Eric Cherry bought half of one that I paid $4,000 for. Paid a lot more than that. But another one was his son Sam, got a record of 52 at Balmoral, raced at the Meadowlands. All my horses went from Florida to the Meadowlands. I was very good at conditioning, getting them ready, but I sent them to friends who were trainers because I didn't want to leave Florida and go to the Meadowlands.
So what made you choose Steve Barter? I mean, Steve Barter is highly respected. You know, I saw he had some entries in just last night. I mean, what made you decide on Steve Barter?
Steve Barter was a close personal friend. We trained in Delaware when we were both just getting started in the business. And the problem with Steve Barter, he doesn't promote himself. If he promoted himself, he'd have 100 horses. He is that good. He's that smart.
He is.
And he's trustworthy. And I say this, it's very difficult to know who you can and cannot trust. I can trust Steve Barter. Plus, his top caretaker is Joy Hockey, who everybody in harness racing knows, and she is the best.
Wow. So you had the 3 horses. Thank you, Sam. You had Hathaway Rider, Sandy Hoofprints, but you know, what do you do? I mean, I got the shot here of you snorkeling. I got here you smoking a cigar, hanging out. But you're also an evangelist. So I guess you're training from your parents bringing you to the church and becoming an altar boy. You're also an evangelist?
Absolutely. And, you know, I was called. It had nothing to do with my parents or anyone else. It has to do with the Lord saying, here's what I want you to do. I started the Christian Honest Horsemen's Association almost 40 years ago. Did I want to do it? No. Did God say you will do it? Yes, he did. You can't say no to God. Okay? And, you know, I tell people how to get to heaven. That's what I do. I'm a soteriologist. I study salvation, and I'm pretty good at it. I've written 2 books that are sold on Amazon, and if you have any questions regarding, hey, where am I going to spend eternity, I can answer them for you, because based on the Bible, because I am a student of the Bible. But I did that in conjunction with horses. My wife and I got into the fractional partnerships, and I think we had like 30 head that we were watching every week from our living room that were with different stables that had partnerships. And so we've never been away from it.
Interesting. What about your granddaughter here, Regan? You talk about highly. You had warned me not to make derogatory comments because she reads your Facebook, so I had to delete my comments. But I guess what's your exposure with your granddaughter Regan with the horses? I mean, obviously we got her on a riding horse bareback.
Well, I think her mother put her up there just to please me. They have her involved in the theater, and she's in a lot of plays. She sings. Her talents are not equine oriented, so yeah, I can forget that. That's not going to happen. But you know, I'd love to have a daughter in the business, but I think she's better off doing what they have her doing. You know, that's an only child, and she's going to end up going to a private school, and you know, who knows? But they have aspirations for her. She's a sweetheart.
All right. So we've got some great shots here of you with some big names in the industry. We've got Dave Miller and you down at Southern Oaks. We got Roger, the voice himself, Houston, at the Little Brown Jug, and the one and only Sam McKee at the Christian Harness Horsemen's Association breakfast. I mean, when you go to events, are you out mingling with these guys? They all know who you are, I guess, when you, come up to Ohio if you travel, or when they come down the winters, into Florida? I mean, are you hobnobbing with these guys all the time?
No, I don't hobnob with them, but we have training centers down here, so, I go to the training centers a lot, so, yeah, I get to be around them quite a bit. I very sure he's big time. I sold a horse to him, and I worked for him at his training center. David Miller, I knew when he was 8 years old.
Wow.
He told me I would do okay in the horse business. His family was in the barn next to me at the Ohio State Fairgrounds, so I knew the Miller family well. Roger Houston's on the board of the Christian Harness Horsemen's Association,
okay,
and I'm the founder, so obviously he knows me. And Sam McKee happened to be the keynote speaker at one of our breakfasts at the Little Brown Jug. So you'll see me too with people who are not famous. I don't pick who I hang out with because of fame or fortune. If I like someone, it doesn't make any difference. If I don't like them, I don't want to be seen with them. I don't care how much money or how much fame they have.
Well, that's what they say. It all comes down to relationships. So we've got this shot here on your phone, I guess, back at the home base. Levito, you want to kind of explain this one to us? He's saying it's a Saturday night at the Meds via the internet. I mean, what are you guys doing? Like last night was a Saturday night. Like, what do you guys typically do when you're watching the horses?
Actually, we print out the programs, and we do a little betting. We're not big bettors, but we try to follow the sport, and that is Tim watching our big screen TV. We've got it all hooked up so we can watch the races wherever they are, but mostly it's the Meadowlands on Friday and Saturday night when they're racing.
So, speaking about the Meadowlands, I didn't know this, but I remember this horse clearly. Give It Gas and Go. I guess you made it to the Hambo in 2017. You want to talk about that? That's pretty amazing.
That was pretty amazing. It was one of the big highlights. We were in partners on Give It Gas and Go, and we actually made it to the Meadowlands Hambletonian. That was really a highlight. And Dave Miller drove the horse in the elimination, and then in the first elimination, and then he chose another horse to drive in the Hambo itself. And if you remember, that was the year that there was some controversy over
the winner.
So, but we were there as owners on Give It Gas and Go, and it was wonderful.
Wow. I mean, Tim, that must have been just amazing, just with your history and everything that you've explained to this point. I mean, how did it feel? I mean, you made it to the Mecca. I mean, you made it to the top, to the echelon. I mean, I can't even explain how that would feel. I mean, when I went to the Meds, the 2 times I covered the Meadowlands, I'd walk up to that trophy and I wouldn't touch it, and the people from CBS looked at me like I had a problem, and I kept saying, like, this is gold in this industry. You don't touch this thing. I mean, how did it feel to be in the Hambo, man?
I have to tell you one thing about that trip. We went up for a week and spent the time in Manhattan, and we were tourists, of course. But then we took a bus out to the Meadowlands, and we were riding with 4 gamblers that were regulars at the Meadowlands. And when we were talking with them on the bus, which we all got friendly, and because it was Hambo Day, they were absolutely amazed that we owned a horse in Hambo and we were taking the bus out to the Meadowlands. Wow. So we all got a big laugh out of that. But it was just, we're very unpretentious people. But anyway, it was a fun day, a very, very much fun day.
But, I mean, Tim, you still haven't answered the question. How did it feel to be in the Hambo? I mean, come on, this is the show here.
It's, I'm going to try to answer that. It was a wonderful feeling, but, it's a wonderful feeling if you get a cheap claimer that goes to the winner's circle.
So it doesn't matter. It's just, like you said, you sat behind Rambling Willie and you thought he was common. So let's talk about your last project, J Bad Act.
without crying. I got her as a project horse. She was absolutely gorgeous, well-bred, and very fractious, afraid of everything, mean, kicked. I had 5 veterinarians say she'll never make it to the races. She's crazy. I had horsemen laughing at me, but I've had people laughing at me all my life, so, that rolls off my back. I saw, first of all, the confirmation, and B, she was so tough and so crazy that I knew that if I could turn that around and head it in the right direction, it's just like I've been in prison ministry with men. You can take the toughest guy in prison, and if you can turn him around, okay, he's going to be the greatest evangelist you ever had. And one of my friends is David Berkowitz, son of Sam. That's a good example. Okay, you could do the same thing with a horse. Standard-bred people, particularly with fillies, they throw a harness on and expect them to go. It's not the way to do it. You take your time, you love them, you teach them to do what you want them to do, you get them to trust you. And that's what I did. And I got her to the race, I got her going well, sent her to a friend in Michigan to race, and she was just learning how to race, and catching on and enjoying it. And I got the call, Tim, I have bad news. What's up? Barn fire.
Yeah, I remember this. I remember this clearly.
Is G dead? He said yes.
Wow.
And I called Levita and I said, you have to come home. And that's been 3 months, and I just, I loved her so much, and I miss her so much, and she didn't get the chance that she deserved.
Well, she's across. So, yeah, I mean, she's crossed the Rainbow Bridge, and I guess we'll see her up in heaven. But you've started something unique in the industry called Harness Racing Action, I guess through all the intrinsic knowledge you've had over the years. You kind of want to explain this to everybody. I'm going to try not to be asking questions. I just want you to kind of talk about what you do, and if we can do it in the third person and not be too negative, but you're pretty influential in the industry, so you kind of want to let everybody know what you're up to these days?
Okay, Rick, going back, when I got into business, I thought it was so fantastic. I tried to get friends, clients, relatives to buy into a horse, but they would say, no, they cheat, they whip them, they had a lot of reasons why they did not want to get in. But throughout the years, I would keep mental notes about what was negative about the industry. When I became an engineer, one of the first things I learned was you have to look at the negative, okay? You don't want to build a building that's going to fall down. And it's the same with harness racing. You don't want a sport that's going to fall apart because you're unwilling to look at the negative. So, negative can be positive. You want to get rid of the things that people don't want and don't like and change them and accentuate the positive. We have a fantastic industry here. People love horses. People love competition. But there's certain things they do not like, and we have to make changes. And my website isn't all negative. I have 25 positive suggestions that should be done to grow the industry. We have 300 million people in the United States who could watch this, and we depend on 5 or 6 or 7 racetracks that have neighbors that come and watch them race.
Well, it's more than 300 million now, Tim. I mean, this is worldwide. Like, this interview is going to go down to New Zealand and Australia. It's going to populate in Europe. I mean, it's not just the States here. You got to realize these days your reach could be a lot bigger than you think. But,
Well, okay, I stand corrected on that. I only use that because I'm talking about in the United States, we have that.
Gotcha.
Okay? But people don't seem to care. This is what bothers me. I get a lot of people who say, I'm on your side, Tim, but I get a lot of people who go, you're just bringing a negative image to our sport. Well, guess what? The sport has died. 30 years ago, we had, like 40,000 USTA members. Today, we have like 7. Okay, and casinos came in and put on a better show. Well, I'm all for decoupling. Sorry, but we better learn to stand on our own 2 feet and not depend on welfare. That's the only way this thing is going to survive, because decoupling is going to happen.
So do you think the casinos are all going to start moving to decoupling, and then the private owners, let's say like a Jeff Gural or like the Carey family, the oldest harness racing track, or not oldest racetrack, they haven't done harness racing all those years, but you're talking over 100 and something years at Hawthorne. Are you saying that the private ownership groups are now going to have an advantage now that the decoupling's happened down in Florida, down by you?
Well, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that the sport will totally die. I think there are probably some, maybe a couple of these racetracks that feel that they will have a monopoly on racing, but they like to see Pompano die. They like to see some of the other racetracks close, and then they would have a monopoly. I'm not sure exactly how that is going to work, okay, but...
Well, I mean, the bottom line, and I don't mean to interject, I mean, look at Maywood. It's the largest Amazon facility in the state of Illinois. I've been told through the insiders Pompano is going to be mixed-use housing, possibly retail, but they're also going to build an Amazon facility down there as well. So it's like you have these huge land masses that used to populate all these horses, and it's not like you're saying, it's not a dying sport, but there's consolidation happening. So the question for you is, what do you think about the consolidation movement in these casinos buying each other, and then the decoupling angle?
Okay, I think the consolidation can be good, okay, if they are sincere in wanting to keep the sport and improve the sport. We don't know that. A lot of it has to do with the price of the land that the racetrack's on. Slot machine, you don't have to haul manure. They don't die on the track. They don't have to be euthanized. There's a lot to be said about putting a casino where there's currently a racetrack. I don't have all the answers, but I do know that changes have to be made. Even if harness racing remains at 4 or 5 different casinos or racetracks, there's still people that aren't going to watch it because they don't want to see horses euthanized. Last night there was a half hour in between the time of the wreck and when the races began again. But they didn't show the wreck again. They didn't come on and say, well, would you please wait a half hour while we kill this horse? Okay, these are things that have to be addressed and they have to be eliminated. On my website, I have ways that we can make this sport safer so horses don't die on racetracks.
Well, you're a think tank, and this is what we need. We need people to come out with ideas, both positive and negative, throw the negatives aside. You're an innovator. I mean, look at your history, look at your knowledge, look at your skill set, look at your education, look at your wife sitting next to you. She supports you 110%. We need more people like you in the industry to start standing up. And
thank you.
No, it's the truth. I'm third generation, and I have this passion, and we have this passion. The question is, how do we get the legislators educated? That's the question for you now. How do you think we should educate these politicians, because it all comes down to education? What do we need to do to get in front of them and show them standardbred racing is different from thoroughbreds? It's hands-on, it's multi-generational, it's an agricultural component, it's people's livelihoods. You know what I mean?
I don't think don't think we wait and do it with the legislators. We do it collectively within the industry. Let's clean it up within the industry, and then we don't have to worry about the legislators. Bringing the FBI in is totally ridiculous. By the time, I'm all for HISA and cleaning the sport up, but by the, what's it going to take? 2 years, 3 years before they actually have much effect? That's going to be expedited. We need more than just that. We need groups of people who will say, let's go, let's do it. Let's take these guys that are drugging horses and get them out of the business. We need more of that being done. There's, like I said, I have 25 ideas that you don't have time to listen to, but you can find them at www.harnessracingaction.com. And I don't sell any advertising.
Exactly.
I don't take any donations.
Exactly.
Nobody owns me.
I love it.
Nobody owns me.
I love it. I'm the same way, man. And here's the thing. We're about to produce, it's Sunday. We're going to do your video tomorrow on Memorial Day. And I'm still sitting on the third person, who is a literal media extraordinaire. And he literally called out myself and Ryan Macedonio for being outspoken in the industry. And, this video would be released yesterday, because it's now Monday when this comes out. Are we pretty much outspoken because we're actually speaking up and people don't like us because we're not following status quo? You know what I mean? Like, they see us as, do they see us as negative because we're not following the status quo? I mean...
They can't handle the truth.
Sounded like Roger Houston there.
Some people just can't handle the truth. Plus, other people don't want to hear it because they're involved. As well as I do. 9 out of 10 horses that go to that starting gate have had something popped into their veins. That's a fact.
Let me ask you this, okay? You weren't aware of the publication that I started. I'm going to give a shout out to all the people that have helped me get to where I am today, and we're going to be interviewing somebody next Monday that's one of my proteges, or mentors. I'm his protege. But let me ask you this. Have you ever heard of Pogo?
Who?
Pogo, P-O-G-O, the cartoon.
No, that's really a cartoon guy.
So when I first came out with the Horseman's voice, I was trying to think of a clever way to have a little cartoon on the front of this trifold, and I put Pogo. And he was sitting there with his little friend, and the saying is, we have met the enemy, and he is us. And it's like a junkyard with all this crap all over the place. How much more cleaning up do you think we need to do in this industry? How many more years do you think it's going to take to get people to clean up their acts, get this sport straightened out, create that East Coast hub, create that Midwestern hub, and if California is still racing, people can go out there for the winners if they want to race with the cheap claimers. Like, how long do you think, with what's happening this summer, with the next round, let's say, how much longer do you think it's going to take? 6 months? A year? I mean, until HISA really gets moving, until the standardbreds and these states really jump in? Like, how much time are we sitting on until you think we're really going to see a change?
It depends on who's going to do it. If I were doing it, it would change real quickly. I'm a no BS guy, okay? But I don't think everybody has my attitude. People are afraid of losing friends. I don't have that many friends, so I don't have much to lose. But it could be done very quickly. But I don't think that the people in the industry, first of all, a lot of people don't want to do it because they know that they're just as guilty as the people that they're trying to stop.
So do you think the federal intervention was a good thing? Because you said at first the FBI would be a bad thing. Do you think what's going on with the investigative agency and everything that's happening is a way just to kind of show people that people are serious? I mean, this is people's passions. There's a lot of us that are on this side of the fence. You know what I mean? Like, we're fighters.
Yeah.
We're fighters.
Okay, let me answer that. First of all, I don't think I said that the FBI was bad. I think that, and if I did, I apologize.
No, you're fine.
I think it's sad that we have to bring the FBI
Exactly.
in. That we can't police it If we wait for the FBI, it's going to take a long time. But if we do it within the industry with people who care and people who are not cheating, I think we could get it done much more quickly than if we wait on the FBI or anyone else. But every week I put up the fines and suspensions. People hate me for that, okay? But you know what? I'm going to embarrass them. If Nick Clegg's name comes up, so be it. Hopefully, you'll be so embarrassed, maybe one of these days you'll get out. If we get 100 people,
what about this? Let me ask you this, and I don't mean to cut off. I mean, you're very long-winded, but let's cut to the chase here. You did something with Twice an Angel, one of the Sowers horses, and this person had some priors. And when you get pulled over by the police, they look at your PIMS, your personal identification management system, and they see your history. They see if you have a guilty. So this guy's got a record. I don't know what the circumstances are with his trainer, but trainer responsibility, it's in his name. What's going on with Twice an Angel? Is New York doing anything?
Well, you can see, you know very well that I've done a lot, but I'm giving it a little bit of time before I start pushing some buttons because I think people may need some time. They have priorities. She's not the priority of everyone in the industry or in the government, but I'm not going to stop until I get some answers. And even at that, I've done something.
So what about the accident last night? All right, let's talk about last night. What should be done? What should be done?
I'm not done there.
But the horse had a bad step, might have jumped a hobble. You couldn't really see it on the video. Like, should there be an investigation into the horse? Should there be?
Well, there should be an investigation. In fact, I haven't had the time, but I'm going to blow that up. I'm going to look at it very closely and see if I can see something that may have happened. Also, was the horse that was euthanized, did they draw blood? Okay, I mean, yeah, there has to be an investigation. If it would have been a human being that died, there would be an investigation.
Exactly.
Well, I have the same compassion for a horse. Sorry.
So I think a lot of these necropsies are thrown under the rug, and I'm sure you think the same. You don't hear anything after a horse dies. I think all the stuff needs to be shown and put to light. I think there should be basically the medical histories of these horses like it's done in Japan with the JRA. There needs to be some big changes. So let me just ask you this before we close out. I'm going to ask you to give a shout out, but if I can have you name your 3 top priorities of change, what would they be?
Stop the drugging. Consider a safer racetrack. On my website, you will see I have advocated a staggered finish line to widen the horses out so they don't fall over top of one another, and get national exposure of a clean sport.
Well, I mean, these are big things, and I think Heisa is going to cover some of them. I look forward to you doing some other big things in the industry, keeping it civil. And the people that are listening, if you think we're crazy, you know what? Any PR is good PR. And if you're doing bad things in this industry, karma's going to get you. And I'm going to say that on the record. Tim, it's been a pleasure. But is there anybody in the industry that you want to give a special shout out to that I guess has helped you, through the years? I mean, obviously your grandfather might have been an influence with the horse and buggy. Your father let you have the animals and paid those vet bills, but is there anybody, you hung out with in Ohio as a kid that might have shown you a couple things, or down in Florida, that you want to give a special shout out to?
The 3 greatest people, one is sitting beside me. She's put up with so much. Okay, that's Levita. Number 2 would be Dave Thomas. I was friends with Dave Thomas, the founder of Wendy's, who the first time I met him, everything was about me. It wasn't about him. He taught me how to be for other people and not be an egomaniac. And the same with Ed Ryan, who once owned the Meadows Racetrack, founder of Ryan Homes. And he was the same way. We stayed with him when we'd go over to the Meadows. And everything's about us. What do you want? What do you need? How can I help you? And I learned that you you don't get places in life by me, take. I love to give, and I learned from those two people who were great businessmen and great mentors.
Well, they say behind every brilliant man, there's always a strong woman. Levita, is there any closing comments you want to add or say before we close out this episode?
Not really. I really appreciate your, what do you call this? Is it a YouTube podcast or what?
Well, it's called The Horseman's Voice. We did this back in the day for 6 months, where we had a trifold that was basically disseminated all over the world. It became an international podcast through Clickcaster, but right now we're just doing YouTube videos, and that's actually a great question, because next week, and if I could lead into this, we're going to be talking with one of my mentors, and we're going to be hitting the county fairs this summer. So your question, dear, is spot on. We're going to be diverting out of these kind of...
You do a fantastic job.
We're going to be doing, a little diversion, if anybody's listening out there towards the end of this, and this is a little long, but it was really enjoyable. We're going to be hitting the county fairs. So anybody that's out in the state of Illinois or anybody traveling in, come walk up, I'll interview you, I'll publish you. And we can't wait to meet some kids, because we've got some big plans. We can't wait to be at the Illinois State Fair. Hey, Tim, Levita, if you guys want to come up to the Illinois State Fair, you're VIPs with me. So, open invitation. It's in August.
What about the jug?
I mean, if Roger starts giving me a hard time, you might see me there. But, Ryan was outspoken, and they kept him on the other side of the fence. So, I don't want to use the word politics, but if I come out to the Little Brown Jug, you better give me access, guys, and you put me on the other side of the fence, you might not ever see me again. Midwestern racing is taking on the East Coast, and it's going to be interesting to see how the breeding programs start really taking off, and the dual program in Pennsylvania with Kentucky. I'm sure you're aware of that, and just what everything's going down in Kentucky with, I was at the OG. We got Corbin. They got the Red Mile. There's some big things happening with Caesars. Indiana's got their act together with Caesars, and now Hawthorne, they started construction again, and, we'll see what happens at the end of 2022. But I really want to thank you. It's been really insightful. Both, Levita and Tim, you've been awesome. You've been absolutely awesome.
So have you. You're a true gentleman.
So I again want to extend that relationship, and if you want to come up to Illinois, open, carte blanche. And when I make it down to Florida, I promised some people this winter I'd come down. I wasn't able to due to car problems, but the car's working. We're gonna hit the fairs this summer, and again, I really thank you for your time today.
And thank you.
Thank you, Eric.